Good morning, everyone. We welcome you to the Board of Trustees meeting for the Utah Transit Authority. Today is Wednesday, September the 23rd of 2020. This meeting is all remote electronic meeting with no anchor location and being streamed live to our YouTube channel. In accordance with state statute, we'll ask Jen Osler if she would read a statement in regards to this determination.
Thank you, Chair. Consistent with provisions of the Utah Open and Public Meetings Act, specifically Utah Code 52-4-207, Section 4, and acting in my capacity as the Chair of the Board of Trustees of the Utah Transit Authority, I hereby make the following written determinations in support of my decision to hold and convene electronic meetings of the UTA Board without a physical anchor location. 1, conducting board committee meetings with an anchor location that is physically accessible for members of the public to attend in person presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. 2, this determination is based upon the following facts, among others. A, the COVID-19 pandemic is ongoing and significant, and continued community person-to-person transmission of the SARS coronavirus 2 virus continues to occur in the state of Utah. And B, federal, state, and local health authorities have adopted guidelines for the general public and businesses which encourage institutions and individuals to take precautions, including limiting in-person interactions and recommending increased virtual interactions. This written determination takes effect on August 24th, 2020, and is effective until midnight on September 23rd, 2020, no more than 30 days after the effective date of this declaration, and may be reissued by future written determinations of the Chair of the Board at that or any other appropriate time. Dated this 21st day of August, 2020, signed Carlton J. Christensen, Chair of the Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Dana. We would also note that public comments were received previously by email or by phone. Those will be distributed. Those have been distributed to members of the board and will be part of the public record. Today, we would like to recognize or acknowledge the passing of one of our dear members of the UTA family, Andrea Nob. Earlier this month, Andrea Nob, a dedicated member of our marketing and communications team, passed away after a courageous battle with cancer. Andrea worked at UTA for more than 19 years and has been an integral part of many of the PR and marketing projects during this time. Andrea was a quiet, calm, and dedicated member of the communications team who always supported her colleagues and often jumping in to help in a crisis. Andrea was an excellent writer and a gifted designer, and her coworkers described her as respectful, admired, and a little mischievous, generous, kind, and a thoughtful, encouraging, and much more. I wanted to maybe just take a moment and ask Andrea Packer, who worked with Andrea, and just share a few thoughts that she might have. Andrea?
Thank you, Chair Christensen. I appreciate the recognition of Andrea, as does my team. First, I'd like to acknowledge her family. I think many of them are watching this morning, her husband, Ben, and her 2 beautiful children. And as you said, Andrea worked at UTA for almost 20 years. In communications, PR, and marketing, and her efforts and her expertise really touched just about everything we have. She was involved in the openings of many of our lines, outreach and communications for the Frontlines 2015 projects, the Service Choices project, things like that. Most recently, the past few years, she worked very closely on the UVX project in Provo Venorum, all through construction and right up to the grand opening, and was very close with Mary Delamar Schaefer and the leadership team at the Timpanogos Business Unit. She also worked very closely in recent years with Sherry Burgess in HR on many of our operator recruitment and marketing campaigns. And so, as you said, she was a gifted writer. She was a gifted communications specialist, and she really was a calm, a receiving personality with everybody that she worked with. She was always the one when I am pacing in the back during our big events, worrying about every little detail, that she would come up to me and just tell me it's all going to be okay. And she had a very welcoming spirit, whether she was doing a public hearing and reaching out to the public, handing out hot chocolate on a platform, or welcoming new people to our team over the years. And so we will miss her greatly. She's been a longstanding member of our team. And I'd also just like to recognize her mother, Eileen Billings, who also works in the PR and marketing department and has been at UTA for 17 years. So we extend our condolences and our support to Eileen as well. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about Andrea for a moment.
Thank you, Andrea. In remembrance of her, if we just take a small moment of silence. Thank you. And thank you, Andrea. And to the UTA family, and certainly to Eileen, we extend our condolences for this loss, and to her family. We'll next move to Safety First Minute. And with that, we have Kent Muhlstein, who's going to do that for us. Good morning, Kent.
Yeah, good morning. We love Andrea and definitely miss her. As many of you know, this week is Rail Safety Week. The goal of Rail Safety Week has always been to raise awareness, provide education, and promote safety at railroad crossings so that the general public knows how to keep themselves safe when they're interacting with our grade crossings and railroad rights of way. In fact, Sheldon, who isn't able to be here in this meeting and would normally be presenting this Safety First Minute, is presenting a rail safety class to a driver's education group in Weber County. So in partnership with Utah Operation Lifesaver, UTA has traditionally participated in various public outreach activities to help increase rail safety awareness during Rail Safety Week. However, due to the coronavirus, we've had to take kind of a more virtual outreach approach. So one of the things that we can you can listen for this week on the radio are some public service announcements by Utah's college football coaches and Craig Bullerjack, who've all been huge supporters of Utah Operation Lifesaver. So we hope as we continue these education efforts that will reduce accidents and fatalities along our rail system. Another thing, accomplishment I'd like to point out is that for the past 2 Tuesdays, UTA Frontrunner and the UTA Police have conducted full-scale emergency response exercises on our rail system. During this kind of unusual busy 2020 year when most first responders have canceled their emergency response exercises, UTA has continued to increase our readiness for responding to an emergency event. So during this exercise, we saw several examples of people making great recommendations or pointing out a safety hazard to help keep one another safe, and really demonstrated the safety culture here at UTA. And I appreciate the trustees for continuing to make safety first here at UTA. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent, and thanks for you and the rest of the team and your efforts in this regard. It's of the utmost critical nature. Thanks so much. We'll move to our consent agenda, which includes approval of our minutes from September the 2nd and September the 9th. I'll look to one of my colleagues for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda consisting of the minutes of the 2 board meetings.
Second.
I have a motion from Kent, seconded by Beth. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. We'll next then go to our agency report with our Executive Director, Carolyn Gannott. Good morning, Carolyn.
Good morning. I just have one item today, but I'm very pleased to do this announcement, and it's to actually introduce our UTA's new Chief Financial Officer, William Green, or as we call him, Bill. Bill joined the agency this Monday on September 21st. In addition to serving as the Chief Financial Officer for UTA, he will also be sworn in today by our Board of Trustees as the agency's treasurer. Bill brings a wealth of knowledge in financial management and nearly 25 years of experience working for transportation agencies in the public sector. He joins UTA from King County DOT and Local Services in Washington, where he has served as CFO for the last several years in a number of different roles with King County. During his time with King County DOT, Bill was responsible for both short and long-range financial planning and budget development for the agency. He led the development and implementation of financial policies and controls and oversaw federal grant programs. In addition to his financial leadership responsibilities, Bill was also tasked with managing audits at local, state, and federal levels, including the FTA triennial, EEO compliance, and procurement reviews. Prior to rejoining King County DOT, he, in the middle, had served as Managing Director in the Office of Management and Budget Services at the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, or WMATA, in DC. In this role, he was responsible for leading the development and execution of the agency's combined $2.7 billion annual capital and operating budgets. He worked to integrate multi-year financial plans with business plans, ensuring resources were properly allocated to agency priorities within WMATA's strategic plan. Bill also has an array of experience with capital program delivery and helped dramatically improve capital program delivery rates and monitoring for WMATA. This work led to a dramatic change in negative perceptions and enabled a more cohesive, enterprise-wide approach to capital program management and delivery. So Bill's extensive background in financial management, coupled with his leadership experience, is making him a valuable addition to our agency, and I look forward to working with him over the next coming years. I'd like to extend also my deep appreciation to Troy Bingham for filling in as interim Chief Financial Officer when Bob Biles left. And so I want to thank you for your dedication and support, Troy. So that's the only announcement I have today. We might have Bill. Do you want to say a few words? Green?
Sure. Thank you, Carolyn. I'm grateful for the opportunity and really excited to join the team. I've got a background, as Carolyn stated, with multimodal transit agencies, so I'm really excited to be here, and my wife and I are looking forward to settling here, and as I said, really excited to join the team. Thank you.
Well, Bill, we're excited to have you. Beth and I are really easy to get along with, Kent most of the time, and will seldom be interested in any of the products that you're producing, so, which is totally opposite, but except for Beth, she's easy to get along with. But we're excited to have you here.
Thank you.
So, thanks.
I do want to thank Trustee Millington for helping on the candidate selection, and Bill, was a clear asset to the agency that we were able to bring him on. I want to thank Trustee Millington for being part of that team.
Well, it's a great privilege to do that, and we certainly welcome Bill to the team.
Thank you.
And Kent's actually a very nice person, for the record.
Welcome, Bill.
Yeah, welcome. Well, I think that's it for you, right? Correct?
That's it. A very short agency report, yes.
Great. Thanks, Carolyn. We'll then move on to agenda item number 5, which is resolutions. The first item up before us is a resolution approving the execution of an interlocal cooperation agreement with Weber County and Ogden City for right-of-way preservation efforts to extend commuter rail north of Ogden. And so with that, we'll turn to Manjeet Renu, and I also understand Hal Johnson may be here as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chairman Christensen, and good morning, trustees. Indeed, Hal Johnson is committed to the agency as always and is prepared to provide the report on this important long-range effort that he's been leading. So I'll turn it over to Hal.
Excuse me. Good morning, everybody. So just, you can do the next slide, Jana, if you would. Just as background, this is an agreement between Ogden City and UTA and Weaver County for corridor preservation funds. And the focus of the project and use of the funds is to preserve a future station across from Business Depot Ogden. And if you haven't been to BDO, Business Depot Ogden, it's a big job center. There's about 6,000 jobs located just west of our railroad right-of-way. So we're working with our project partners to preserve a future station, so we could have a nice station location just north of Ogden. So it's actually pretty close to the Ogden station, but given the size of the job center, we think it's important to preserve this station location. And also as part of the project, we will have some funding made available for right-of-way survey. And so we have a survey contractor on board that we procured through our Box Elder right-of-way contract. And so the some funding from this project will also be used to do the survey work in Weaver County as well. So you can do the next slide. So this is just a map of the station location that we're looking at. And you can see it's got actually a long extended pieces to the south there. It was originally a piece of railroad right-of-way, and then you can see how it kind of extends out to the east. And so we would purchase the piece highlighted in red, and then the map there on the left shows the station location relative to BDO. I think you can do the next one, I think. And so here's the quick deal points. So Weaver County would provide up to $3 million for survey and acquisition. We'll use $175,000 for the survey work. And all the funding for this project's coming from Weaver County's right-of-way preservation account. Once the project, the contract with the county has a repayment provision, and the repayment provision notes that once we build a project in the future and use the property, then we would repay the right-of-way fund at the original $3 million value that was awarded to the project. So, and just to, excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. Just a quick note. So Ogden City and UTA will sign the contract with Weaver County. And Ogden will lead the property purchase efforts, and UTA will lead the survey work. So I think that's the end of the slides.
Hal, I did have a question, and I don't know if Janet can go back to the aerial photo there. Are the buildings or the items in this acquisition, are they part of the property owner's use, or are they some kind of encroachment from those homeowners to what I assume is the east? Yeah,
The buildings are part of the purchase, and the company's the site right now is used by a company that does they provide cranes, construction cranes. Okay. Most of the buildings on the site are well past their prime, if you will, and so the buildings aren't a significant contributor to the value of the property. Most of the value is coming in from the land itself.
But you won't have to deal with homeowners along that Century Drive or anything. They haven't expanded their backyard into this section, I take it.
Correct. Yeah. The property owner has actually done a good job of there's fencing to prevent people kind of pushing into the railroad corridor. So yeah, it is. It's all fenced off. So they've done a good job kind of maintaining the property there.
And what is the anticipated timeline? I mean, is this in phase 2 of the RTP? Is it something that we think comes in 5 to 10 years? Do you have a sense of timing? Yeah.
That's a good question. We've looked at it some in the future frontrunner study. It is noted as a project in the long range plan. I think off the top of my head, it's a phase 2 or phase 3 project in the long range plan. And I think some of it we'll know more as we start moving forward with some of the frontrunner studies.
Sure.
That we've identified. And as you know, we recently discontinued service to Pleasant View. So if we reinstate service to Pleasant View, we could do this as a piece of that project or as a standalone extension. So I guess with we've got the modeling work that's coming out for the commuter rail project, and then we'll have some subsequent planning and engineering studies that will help better define a time frame as well as the business case for extending rail service to BDO.
Okay, very helpful. Thank you. Any other questions, however, from the board or staff? Beth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say that, that this is a big deal for Ogden City and for Weber County in this area in general. As Hal mentioned, there's a lot of relative density to these different types of businesses in this area. And they do believe that this is going to really be valuable, not just to Ogden City, but the surrounding communities that kind of are connected to that, just a little bit to the west and to the north. All of that connectivity, I think, is going to really add value. And I know that this is exciting for the city and for the county.
Thank you. Any other questions? I certainly think it's the right time to acquire the right-of-way and the property. That's very timely. If there are no other questions, Ken, did you have a question or?
No.
Okay.
Ready to vote for this.
Okay. Well, do you want to make the motion?
Well, I'll leave it to Beth. This is her area.
That's smart.
Thanks, Ted. I would, and I'm honored to do this, I would love to make the motion to approve our 2020-09-04, a resolution approving the execution of an interlocal cooperation agreement with Weber County, Ogden City for the right-of-way preservation efforts to extend commuter rail north of Ogden.
I will second that motion.
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Ken. I'll ask for a roll call.
Trustee Millington,
Aye.
Trustee Holbrook,
Aye.
Chair Christensen.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Hal, and thanks, Manjeet.
Thanks for your time today.
Yep. That takes us to item number B, which was mentioned earlier, a resolution appointing William Green as an officer of the board and treasurer of the authority. And we had an interim step in the retirement of Bob Biles, and we thank Brian Steele, and then of course Troy continues on in his role as controller. With that, I would present to the board that we appoint William Green as the treasurer of the authority. Beth?
Did you just make the motion or did you second it?
No, I was just looking to one of you.
Okay.
One of you unmuted, so
My apologies.
I should leave it up to you guys to lead out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve our 2020-09-05, which is a resolution appointing William Green as officer and treasurer of the authority.
Second.
I have a motion by Beth, seconded by Kent. I'll ask for a roll call on the resolution.
Trustee Holbrook,
Aye.
Trustee Millington,
Aye.
Chair Christensen.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll be back in a little bit to administer that oath of office to Bill. That brings us to item number C, which is a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale by the authority of its sales tax revenue refunding bonds in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $81 million, along with related matters. And with that, I'll turn to Troy Bingham and Brian Baker with Science Public Finance. Good morning, Troy.
Good morning. We also have Randy Larson from Gilmore Bell representing us as bond counsel for this refunding. So hopefully those two are on the line to answer questions at the end of my presentation, but I'll go forward. All right. All right. Next slide, if you would. So as you know, we have 2012 non-taxable municipal bonds that we are looking to refund using taxable bonds. And this is currently a graph showing you how the taxable bond market looks for 20-year bonds. As you can see, there's a little volatility week to week. So the urgency to get this process started and get out in the market is imperative. So we are looking to pass a resolution today to start that. On to the next slide. With refundings, we have a policy that we look for when we refund and when we don't refund. Any refunding needs to have a net present value savings of 5% or more. It also considers lowering the maximum annual debt service, which happens in 2029. So we look to make sure that we can lower that if possible. And we want to move any principal payments. The 2012 bonds that we're refunding, the principal payment was in June 2015. We hope with this refunding to move those principal payments to December 15th of every year. And then the last thing to consider is we issued a lot of debt prior to 2015 with subordinate bonds, and we look to make use of our senior bond debt, which gets us better rates in the market. On to the next slide. So this information is about 15 days old. There was new information presented this morning, but we will look to this information. As you can see, the net present value benefit is $5.4 million with a net present value benefit percentage of 7.4. So that is greater than that 5% that we talk about. You'll notice that the bonds are $73.6 million that we're refunding, but the resolution talks to $81 million. When you're refunding non-taxable municipal bonds, there's a certain call date that has not happened yet. So using taxable bonds, we still have to set aside securities to cover any interest payments in the time being until those call dates actually occur. So the amount of 81 million is the difference between the principal amount and those interest payments. So that is why we're issuing more bonds than what we actually had in the initial 2012. Moving on to the next slide. So as I said, the 2012 had 4% coupons, and the current market for taxable bonds, we're looking at mid 2.5 to 2.8%. So we're definitely having interest rate savings. What we propose for the new payments on the refunding will lower the maximum annual debt service savings. Again, it's only $81 million on a $2.5 billion debt portfolio. So it does very little, but it does lower a few of those maximum annual debt years. And we'll point to that graph later on the presentation. It does move the principal payments to December 2015, and it structures the payments with level annual debt service. And it uses senior bond debt, like I was saying, that gets us a better interest rate in the market. And it will not be a negotiated zone. All right, moving on to the next. So what we're doing with
this resolution, will or will not be a negotiated sale?
It will not.
Oh, will not. Okay.
Moving on to the calendar. So we have already taken this to the advisory council for approval, and we are here today passing the resolution to start the 30-day contest period that people can actually protest us reissuing or refunding these bonds. So there's a 30-day period that starts with this resolution today. That will run concurrently as we wait for the State Bonding Commission to meet on October 13th. The resolution points to the State Bonding Commission having to approve the move forward on this refunding, or the whole process stops. So as we're moving forward, if the State Bonding Commission declines this move, then the whole process would stop and our 30 days would not continue forward. So we intend to sell with the 30 days being in the end of October. Sometime after the end of October, again, the market moves every week, so we will watch that. But the resolution will be open for 1 year from that date of the State Bonding Commission for the market to hopefully make this deal worth our time and worth the effort to go through. So with that, hopefully I've clarified everything. Brian Baker's on the line to answer any questions you have about the overall refunding. And then the resolution was actually drafted by Gilmore Bell, so Randy Larson can answer any questions on that. I turn the time over to those two if they have anything.
Maybe I did have a question for Brian. You mentioned you had some updated numbers because these were about 9 days old.
Yep.
Is it about the same, better, or worse?
It's actually better, and we've talked a couple of times already, just kind of as a kind of an introduction to the board a few weeks ago, and then with the local advisory council last week. The numbers that we are looking at today that were actually run by Wells Fargo at the end of the day yesterday show somewhere around 10 or 11% savings and show a couple $1 million more in net present value savings than we've previously been looking at. And so those are positive things. Again, the market is a moving target, and so we'd hope to get to look at the market and try to figure out a time that made sense to get in there. But if we were in the 7.5% as shown in today's presentation, or in the 10+% range as rates look like they are right now, those would both be very good numbers. In addition, with the addition of about $3.8 million that you have in your debt service reserve fund on these old 2012 bonds, that doesn't need to be, you don't need a debt service reserve fund on the new bonds, so that would go to cash flow savings as well. So we estimate somewhere currently around $12 million in cash flow savings that would just be spread out over the remaining life of these bonds. So that's a positive thing.
And I don't know if Jana, you can go back, maybe. Oh, go forward one slide. It said negotiated sale, and then Troy, you said non-negotiated. So I didn't know if one of you could just clarify that. I just wanted to make sure
the position we're taking there.
Well, we've talked. So in every 5 years, the authority goes out and procures a collection of underwriters. Currently, you have 3 underwriters under contract that were competitively procured for things like this. We haven't talked about it in great detail internally with staff, but it's the sort of deal that would probably run similar to how the last 2 refundings have done. Given there aren't a lot of large taxable refundings that are done as competitive sales, and so we'll talk about it and we can go through that. But I think I had envisioned, and kind of the recommendation that's up there about using one or all of the underwriters that the authority has already previously engaged through a competitive process to handle the sale and taking the bonds into the market, if that makes sense.
It's just using those services to sell the bonds. That's what you mean by negotiated, or what?
Yes.
Okay. But
yeah,
but they'll go through a competitive pricing, a bidding by the bond purchasers, correct? I mean, like the previous issuances.
Brian?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't know, Randy, can you tell me, so the resolution goes forward for a year, which I understand, because in the last issuance we had, we delayed it and probably got a much better deal. Are there any downsides or consequence to having a full year resolution?
No. The board has the privilege or discretion at any time to remove or update or the authority or for the parameters. So that year is kind of a general rule that we use in public finance to get some comfort that the board has approved it. By statute, there's not a restriction on how long a refunding resolution authority lasts. We use that kind of as a benchmark, but the board should be aware that it would always have the discretion to revise these parameters should it feel the need to.
Okay. Very helpful. Thank you. Questions from members of the board?
Yes, I had a question. It was kind of similar along the lines of Carlton, but slightly different. When you have this opportunity, I guess, or the year's worth of time to complete this resolution of this bond purchase or this bond refinance, I should say, is that, I had wondered if that was part of, do you wait to get like a slightly better rate, or are there some other components to that? If everything goes well and October 13th, the bonding commission approves this, does that mean that you will just then take that and go with whatever the rate is at that time? And how much, and how volatile is that? Those are my kind of 2 questions.
Brian, you want to answer that?
Let's see. I think you're on mute, Brian. I
apologize for the mute. What I was saying was, it was riveting. But when you put the year on there, what that's really doing is saying, okay, if this went on, if we didn't do it because rates moved against us, and we didn't do it because rates moved against us, and that's the number one reason that we wouldn't act. We showed you 7.5. If we'd been back today and the update was, it's more like 4.5, we're kind of really on the fence there. Then if the bonding commission said you have permission to go ahead and do it, then we would kind of be sitting here having to strategize internally. Man, does it really make sense to go forward if we're just barely on the cusp of 5%, or does it make sense to wait? Again, this is the resolution delegates to a pricing committee setting the final terms on the bonds, and that pricing committee involves the treasurer, the general manager, and then the chair of the board, or in the chair's absence, either of the other trustees. And so it's two of those three that get to sign off on the final terms. And so we'd all have to be in agreement that the authority wanted to move forward and do it. But if we were to finish with the state bonding commission and still have rates around where they are and savings around where they are, our recommendation would probably be that it made sense to move forward. And we could talk about the market moving up and the market moving down. And I've had conversations with all of you before, just simply about the idea that we're not in the business of being market timers. And so we just kind of look at things, and if the market looks good, and if the opportunity looks good, and if the savings are something that the authority says, you know what, we'd be pretty happy if we got those savings, then we'd recommend saying, okay, well, let's take them now, as opposed to betting on the come and hoping that things get better down the road.
And Trustee Holbrook, I want to let you know, our 30-day contest period doesn't end until it would be the 24th of October. So the earliest day we could sell would be after the 24th of October.
Thank you for the clarification, and thank you, Brian, for the explanation. That does make sense to me. I just wanted to confirm that, so thank you.
I think we actually experienced that, didn't we, this last year? We approved an amount that we only did part of it. We waited a little while, and then the opportunity came with the lower interest rates to take advantage of that, and so we issued additional refunding. And so that's the kind of thing that I think the 1 year gives us, is an opportunity to wait and see if we can get slightly better rates.
That's right.
Yeah, that's correct. And the resolution provides flexibility for that. These bonds don't have to be issued in one time. They can be issued in more than one series. And they also can be issued as negotiated or a competitive bid. We've reserved that option to UTA in this resolution to cover both options. Whatever your municipal advisor, Zions Bank and Brian recommend will get you the best rate. So we've preserved that flexibility in this resolution.
Thank you.
Any remaining questions on this one? Trey, did you have anything else?
I have 2 remaining slides to show you.
Yeah,
so
please.
Forward. Gianna, one more. This is the debt, whole debt portfolio as of the last bond refunding we just did in March. So pointing out that we have debt that goes out to 2044, and those maximum annual debt services you'll see will occur in that 2029 period. So just wanted to point that out. And this refunding will hopefully lower a few of those years, 2029, 30, 31, and 32. So, and then the last slide. We will go out to the rating agencies again with this bond refunding, but currently we are AA status at all of the agencies and still looking to hold that for this refunding. So that is it.
Great. Thank you, Troy. Thanks to Randy and Brian and others for a lot of hard work to get us to this point. If there are no other questions from the board, I would turn to either one of you for a motion on the resolution.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2020-09-06, authorizing the issuance and sale of the authority of its sales tax revenue refunding bonds in the aggregate amount not to exceed $81 million.
Second.
We have a motion from Kent, seconded by Beth. I'll ask for a roll call.
Trustee Millington?
Aye.
Trustee Holbrook?
Aye.
Chair Christensen?
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll cross our fingers for some good luck here.
Thanks.
Item number D is just a correction or a clarification. We had a resolution that we approved in a prior meeting amending our employment agreement with our executive director. In it, it referenced Amendment 1. It actually ended up being Amendment 2. Just a mistake on amendment reference, and nothing else about that agreement had changed, but we wanted to get that clarified. You may remember that a while back we made some allowance on Carolyn's health insurance. She actually saved us money by maintaining some insurance from prior employment, and so rather than through our normal means, that was out of First Amendment. So this annual assessment is the Second Amendment to that contract. So with that correction, I would entertain a motion on this resolution.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve our 2020-0901 amended. The resolution is amending the terms and conditions of employment for the Executive Director, Carolyn Gannott.
Second.
I have a motion by Beth, seconded by Kent. I'll ask for a roll call.
Trustee Millington,
Aye.
Trustee Holbrook,
Aye.
Chair Christensen.
Aye.
Thank you. The vote is unanimous.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Next up is oath of office for Officer and Treasurer of the Authority, William Green. And with that, we'll turn to Kathy Griffith, who we would also note is her birthday today. So happy birthday, Kathy.
Thank you, Carlton. Bill, if you're ready, if you'll raise your right hand and then repeat after me. I, William Green,
I, William Green,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
and that I will discharge the duties of my office
as Officer and Treasurer
as Officer and Treasurer
of the Utah Transit Authority with fidelity.
of the Utah Transit Authority with fidelity.
We'll give you a virtual round of applause there, Bill, and congratulate you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you, Kathy.
I do want to just thank Brian Steele, Assistant Controller, who actually was the treasurer during this brief period between Bob Biles and Bill Green, and thank him for his service as the treasurer.
Thank you. Thanks. Great recognition, Carolyn. And Bill, thanks again, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to working with all of you.
Great. We'll go to item number 7, which is for contracts, disbursements, and grants. Our first item up is the Depot District Clean Fuels Technology Center bus lifts with, I hope I say this right, Sturtle Coney. And with that, I'll turn to Manjeet and David Osborne. Manjeet.
Thank you, Chairman Christensen. And indeed, David Osborne is here to provide the presentation, very brief presentation. He's been doing great work in managing this important, strategic, and complex project for UTA. Thank you, David.
Thanks. Yeah, we are seeking to enter a contract with Sturtle Coney to provide the bus lifts for our new bus depot facility. We want to purchase these lifts off the state contract, and part of the reason that we would like to do that is we have similar Sturtle Coney lifts elsewhere, and so they're a lift that our staff are familiar with and know how to use, and they have a good track record. And additionally, by us procuring the lifts through the state contracts, we're able to save our prime contractor's markup of approximately 10%, which will save us about $200,000 if we procure the lifts and have them be an owner furnished item.
That makes a lot of sense. Questions from the board?
No questions. Makes a lot of sense.
I'll entertain a motion on this contract then.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the contract as presented.
Second.
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Kent. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, David, and thanks, Manjeet.
Thank you.
We'll move to item B, which is a contract with South Utah County Transit Analysis with Parametrics. And with that, we'll turn to Laura Hanson. Good morning, Laura.
Good morning, Trustee. The sun changed during our meeting and now it's right in my face. Thanks so much for this. This project is something that we are working on in partnership with the Mountain Land Association of Governments, UDOT, and all of the local communities in the southern half of Utah County. In the phase 1 of the MAG RTP, their Regional Transportation Plan, it identifies an extension of Front Runner from Provo to Payson, Utah. Our effort here will be to take a look at the feasibility of that extension and look at some short, mid, and long-term solutions to connect the communities between Provo and actually all the way to Santa Quin with public transit. And so this project will come up with recommendations for those various different time points. I will note that half of the cost of this planning study is being contributed by the Mountain Land Association of Governments, and so we are 50-50 partners on this. We're really excited to be able to move this forward, build some new relationships with the local government partners there, and identify some opportunities to better connect them with public transit. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
What kind of time frame are we talking about, Laura, for the completion of this study?
A study like this will probably take about 12 months to complete. And so we are just barely, obviously getting started here. And I think it will probably be next fall by the time we finish up.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Laura? With that,
Chair, I recommend that we approve this contract for the South Utah County Transit Analysis with Parametrics.
Second.
I have a motion by Kent, seconded by Beth, to approve the contract. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. Thanks, Laura. And we'll hope for good outcomes from the study. Next item up is a change order for on-call maintenance task order number 124, grade crossing panel and tub replacement with on rehabilitation at 114th South with Stacy and Whitbeck Incorporated. And we'll turn to Eddie and Dave Hancock, one of my favorites, number 124.
Good morning. Before Dave Hancock presents task order number 124, I wanted to mention a discrepancy on the extension for the on-call maintenance contract with Stacy and Whitbeck Incorporated. The amendment amount for the extension was $5,750,000. This amount has not been exceeded in 2021, but the total contract value after the extension was misstated when the board approved that extension. The amount that was on the extension was $37,065,184. The total contract value, including the extension, should have been $40,925,791. To date in 2021, not including today's task order, we have spent $4,533,048, with the current total contract amount being $39,708,839. Although the correct total contract amount has been communicated with the approval of each task order, I wanted to ensure the board was aware of this discrepancy. Are there any questions before I turn this over to Dave?
Eddie, there wasn't necessarily a maximum in the actual contract itself that got exceeded. It's just that the amount reported was incorrect, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Well, it's good to clarify that and make sure that that those things occasionally do happen, and so I appreciate that clarification. However, are there any questions of the board on that particular aspect? Okay, seeing none, should we turn to Dave then?
Yeah, Dave will present the next task order.
Okay.
Thank you, Eddie, and thank you, trustees. This task order is number 124, and it is for the replacement of one grade crossing on the blue line at 114th South. And as you know, to maintain a state of good repair, the agency needs to replace or rehabilitate 5 to 7 grade crossings per year. And as of right now, as of this year, we've replaced 5 on tracks, and we have rehabilitated 3 on the front runner grade crossing. So this task order is for the next tracks grade crossing, and the cost is $225,040, and bringing the total contract value to $39,933,879. This work is scheduled for completion by the end of October, and this will have a useful life of 10 to 15 years before we'll have to go back in and rehabilitate it again. Are there any questions?
Dave, how long will, I assume they'll have to close 114th South down while they do this, or do they do half at a time, or how does that happen?
Yeah, this UDOT 114th South being a UDOT road, we'll need to close it down completely, and it will be done over a weekend. So this is something that will be started Friday night at midnight after revenue service and be up and running Monday morning before revenue service.
Okay, so fairly modest impact, but not insurmountable, that's for sure.
Right, we will have to close down the rail at this location, so we're looking at a bus bridge around this intersection.
Okay. Any questions for Dave on this contract change order? If none, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the change order for the on-call maintenance task order number 124, the grade crossing panel tub replacement rehabilitation on 114th South with Stacy and Whitbeck.
Second.
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Kent. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Dave. Thanks, Eddie, for your efforts here. Next, we'll go to pre-procurement items, and with that, we'll turn to Todd Mills. Good morning, Todd, and welcome.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Good morning.
Function there. Good morning, Mr. Chair. This morning I have 4 pre-procurements ready to go for procurement. The first one is a contract for light rail transaction power substations and rehabilitation. This is a procurement to contract with a firm to overhaul and update the 18 traction power substations on the light rail system. The current substations do not have any data logging, remote control, or supervisory control and data acquisition capabilities. As a result, the real-time condition of the substation is not known by our operations control center. This project will include updating the systems to allow for the entire TPSS system at UTA to be integrated into one central control center with real-time information once the project is complete. This contract will also include the procurement of one portable TPSS, which will be used to when substations are taken offline during the rehabilitation. This contract will be procured as an RFP where technical criteria will be evaluated and scored in addition to price. And I have Dave Hancock on the line as well to be able to answer any questions you might have.
I did have one, maybe, Dave. This year has afforded me 2 days of opportunities to be in the Operation Control Center during disasters. And that there was always the question of which substations were up and running, and personnel were having to go and check that. Obviously, it will be somewhat dependent on power availability, but will this help in that assessment of knowing what's running and what's not?
Yes, this will allow us to connect these 19 older substations into the control room, into our TDX software that will be able to show online which breakers are open and closed, where we're having issues. And so it will give us much more knowledge in the control room as we have these issues with power outages or just disasters that we end up having. We'll be able to have more information in the control room. And plus, this is to rehabilitate the DC side of the substations. And so we'll be getting all new equipment and all new breakers and panels and all of that kind of stuff that will help us extend the life of these substations.
Are they likely to be able to transmit data even if power is out? Do they have some kind of backup, or do you just basically assume they're not working if they don't transmit?
Yeah, as long as we have our fiber connection, usually our fiber connection will work without power. As long as we're connected into the fiber, we should be able to get some information. There probably are times when maybe we won't if the power is out for long enough, but I think we still should be able to at least see if it's online or offline.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on this procurement? Okay, thank you. Holiday gift cards.
Yeah, so the next one is for holiday employee gift cards. To purchase holiday gift cards for all UTA employees. It has been the tradition of UTA to give employees a grocery store gift card during the holidays to show appreciation for hard work and accomplishments throughout the year. Through the procurement process at UTA, typically receives a discount on the gift cards and pays less than the face value of the card. This year, the cards will be $125 and will be distributed in November to employees. This procurement will be conducted as an IFB, where vendor selection will be based solely on price. Do you have any questions on that one?
Any questions? I don't see any, Todd.
Okay. The next one is a contract for the on-call infrastructure maintenance contract. It's a procurement to contract with a firm to provide maintenance and construction support for UTA's ongoing state of good repair projects and infrastructure assets. This contract is for infrastructure projects such as grade crossing replacements, rail replacement work, rail maintenance, and concrete rehabilitation and replacement. There will be a separate on-call systems contract to address items such as signaling, traction power, overhead catenary systems, etc. This contract will be for a base term of 3 years plus 2 one-year options for renewal. Funding for this contract is included in the SGR budget, and this procurement will be conducted as an RFP with technical criteria evaluated and scored into it in addition to price. And again, Dave Hancock is here to answer any questions you might have.
Todd or Dave, will this potential contract have some kind of cap to it, or is it an open contract?
So, and maybe Dave want to chime in on this as well, but the intention of this is to submit a dollar amount each year that'll be similar to what we've done in the past, to say, you know, next year we'll spend X amount of dollars and then come to the board each year for that pre-approval.
Okay.
Dave, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, that is correct. It will be based on budget and where we have resources to spend and projects that we need to get done. There won't be any cap or not to exceed amount. It will be based on what we have in approved budgets.
And you said the term was 3 years, potentially, or?
It's a 3-year base, and then it'll have 2 one-year options for renewal.
Okay. Questions from the board?
Is this the same as the contract that we just considered with Stacy and Whitbeck?
Yes, this will be the next contract.
The next version of that?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And is it anticipated that it would be a pretty competitive bid? I mean, or is this such specialty work that we think the field is fairly limited?
This is specialty work. However, I think we'll get sufficient bids to make it competitive.
Okay.
Last time we went out, we had 4 or 5.
Okay. So we had more than 1 or 2, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to have a sense of, you know, are people going to actually respond to it? So, any other questions, however? Okay. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Todd.
As you say, and then the last one we have is a financial advisor procurement. So it's a procurement contract with a firm to be a financial advisor to UTA. The selected firm will assist UTA with items such as bond refinancing, analysis, debt service, reserve accounts, and preparing the transit development plan. This contract will have a base term of 3 years, excuse me, with 2 one-year options for renewal. The procurement will be conducted as an RFP with technical criteria evaluated in addition to price. And we have Troy Bingham that can answer some additional questions you might have.
The one question I did have for Troy, or Todd, maybe you know the answer, and that is, we just approved a bond resolution. How long does the current contract go to, and would we potentially have a different financial advisor if this issuance got delayed?
That is a good question. The current contract goes to the middle of November, I believe. So, but currently we've already engaged Brian Baker and Zions Public Finance with this task. So I think we'd have to still pay out for anything that occurs with this 2020 refunding.
Okay.
If there was a switch in firms, so.
Okay. Any questions, however, from the board on this one? Seeing none, I think that's it. Todd?
Yep, that's it.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your help and for that advance notice. We'll next turn to item number 8, service and fare approvals. And we have a purchase and administration agreement with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And with that, we'll turn to Monica Morton. Good morning, Monica.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am here today to discuss the contract that we have with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I also have Kenzie Kunkel with me if there's any questions, and she is the manager over the contract. We've had a long-standing relationship with them. It spans over 30 years, and we do have a current contract in place right now. And this contract was approved last December. It does go through this December, and it gives full-time employees access to an unlimited annual premium transit pass, but currently it excludes part-time employees. Although part-time employees can participate in a program we have that gives them a 20% discount through a separate contract, and they've had that since 2013. So we've basically negotiated a custom contract with them that will replace the current contract for the 20% discount for part-time employees, and we're bringing all of these together under one contract now. So the contract will be 7,900 employees now. That's about 1,800 more than their current EcoPass contract. And we'd like the contract to start October 1st and go through December 31st of next year. To arrive at the contract pricing of this agreement, we used past church electronic tap data. We also did some future ridership estimates. We did paper pass usage estimates for those that are coming over to the new program. And discounts were computed by comparing the fair value of actual usage that we expect to happen to the contract revenue received. So with the unknown of COVID that we're experiencing right now, and based on our projections, we see the discount being as low as 15% or as high as 30%, depending on trip usage. And this discount, I do want to point out, is in line with other custom eco contracts. So with that information, I can answer any questions that you have.
Any questions from the board?
Monica, I was just wondering if you could kind of give the background of what the churches, how they're going to bring people back, and it kind of explain how that whole criteria that the state is derived and how that plays into that.
Absolutely. I will let Kenzie speak to that.
Great question. So had a conversation in July with the church, and initially they indicated that starting when Salt Lake City went to yellow, so it's based on the governor's scale of red, orange, yellow, green, that when Salt Lake City went from Orange to yellow, they would bring back about 25% of their employee base back to work. And then going from yellow to green, they would bring back the remaining workforce. So that was scheduled to take place on November 21st, or excuse me, what month are we in? September 21st, but has since moved to next Monday, the 28th, just based on some of the current circumstances.
Thank you, Kenzie.
And Kenzie, what's the numbers or ridership numbers? I assume you had to use some sort of pre-March numbers to make your estimates. I can't think that anything since then has been very reflective of what the potential use could be.
Yeah, so we did use we looked at both pre-COVID numbers and then attempted to forecast, ridership as people begin to shift back to work.
Okay, so you did assume some ramp up usage probably.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Any other questions on this particular contract? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on this purchase and administration agreement.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the past purchase administration agreement with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
I'll second that.
I have a motion from Beth, seconded by Kent. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. Thanks, Kenzie, and thanks, Monica. We're actually glad to have large employers continuing to want to extend agreements, and we know times are uncertain for many, and certainly appreciate their commitment to transit and transit use. So thank you.
You're welcome. I agree. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thanks. Would just note that our upcoming business, we have some budget work sessions where the board will review proposed budgets prior to a release of a tentative budget of our different work areas within UTA. We have one scheduled for September 30th, October 1st, and then the 2nd. Then our next meeting of the Board of Trustees will be on October the 7th. I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of exchange, lease, and sale of real property. And if the public discussion of the transaction would prevent the public body from completing the transaction on the best possible terms for the agency. And prior to the beginning of that closed session, we'll take a small recess until 10:15, at which time we would convene in the closed session. So with that, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we go to a closed session.
Second.
I have a motion by Kent, seconded by Beth, to go into a closed session for the reasons previously stated. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. So we'll take a recess now and go into our closed session. Thank you. Hi, we've returned from our closed session, and with that, it brings us to our, I believe, our final option for adjournment, and I'll entertain a motion for that action.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
I would also note, and as we adjourn, we do so in memory of our UTA communications specialist, Andrea Nob, and certainly, as mentioned before, our condolences to her family and loved ones, and she'll definitely be missed as part of our UTA family. With that, all in favor for adjournment, say aye.
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 Any opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone, and thanks to staff.
Thank you.